Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Ancestral Eyes. Here we are tonight. I would love to welcome our guest tonight, a true Tuvan Shamaness, straight from Tuva. And her name is Larisa Oorzhak Koronowski. Welcome. Welcome, Larisa Shamaness ChokBar. Welcome to our show, to Ancestral Eyes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Jean-Jerome, I'm going to let you say hello and welcome to everybody.
Yeah. Welcome, Buruboy, and welcome to everybody who's listening and tuning in from different parts of the world. We're very happy to have Larisa Oorzhak Koronowski with us, Shamaness ChokBar, and we're in for a very interesting show this evening.
Yes, I can't wait to get started. I look forward to this all week. I look forward to all the shows. And I know a few people are just specifically tuning in for this, okay? They're just pumped and they're excited as I am. So I'm going to start off right away with my first question.
Sure.
So now I'm going to ask, your name, ChokBar, is a spiritual name. Could you give us a little bit of detail how you came upon getting this name and what it means?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Hello to everyone again. So, Shamaness ChokBar. ChokBar is my spiritual name, right? And
Yes.
so when my non-physical spiritual teacher appeared, he and other spirits who were working with me, they started to call me and address each sentence with the words Shamaness ChokBar.
Interesting.
Yes, ChokBar consists of two Tuvan words. Chok means no, or not to have, or emptiness, or void, and Bar means to the appearance of something, to have something. Yes, or fullness. So as my non-physical spiritual teacher says, that in my name there is a formula of creation of everything in this universe, because before before you could have something, you have to have a period of nothing, not having it, and that is what secures the second part. And he says that the first part, not having it, the emptiness, the void, is more important than the second.
Absolutely. I totally can relate to that. It's like your name and you as a spirit, and your spirit's coming from the void to be able to create you as the Shamaness ChokBar. So from nothing comes something. And so I welcome you. I love that. I think it's a wonderful explanation. And it's interesting that all your spirits were on board to actually bring forth this name of yours. So I think that's quite important to note here. Now, what I'm going to ask you just your basic, because some people don't know the entire geography of Russia, of Siberia. So I'm going to ask, where is Tuva in regards to Siberia? Okay. And I know it's a remote part of Siberia. So if you could just give us like the population roughly and where it is in relation to Siberia.
So Republic of Tuva belongs since 1944 to the Russian Federation, and it is located in the Asian part of Russia, because Russia has two parts, it's so big, has European part and Asian
Right.
part, and that is divided by the Ural Mountains. And Tuva is located at the geographical center of Asia. So it
Okay.
is the center of Asia, and it is surrounded by the mountains, and it is we still have no railroad. The population
Wow.
is only a little bit over 300,000.
Wow.
And the square mileage is, if I'm not mistaken, something like about 68,000.
From where?
The
68,000.
geographical, the size of Tuva. So the size
Oh,
is very big,
okay.
and the
Wow.
population is very, very small.
Okay. So I gather from like when I looked it up on a map of Siberia, you said it's surrounded by mountains and it's the Ural Mountains, right? Because I think it's
Sayan Mountains.
Sayan Mountains. Okay. So you have also the diversity in regards to the topography of the land.
Mm-hmm.
You've got mountains, you've got flat lands, you've got even deserts. Can you tell me a little bit about the topography and how diversified Tuva really is?
Yes, so exactly. So Tuva is very, very diverse with their zones. Like as you said, we have taiga, we have forest, we have steppes, we have mountains, we have lots of lakes, and so like to the degree that we have reindeers in the north of Tuva, and we have camels in the south.
Wow. That's amazing. Like when you think about that. So no wonder you've got like you have 4 seasons, and being a shaman, obviously you have all of that at your disposal and for you to communicate with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you really get a sense of that. So to get to Tuva, like describe to me, like where do you live right now and how long does it take you to go from where you are now back home to Tuva?
Right now I live right next to New York City in the United States, and to get to see my parents, to go back home, which I go every year for prolonged periods of times. So from New York City there is a flight to Moscow,
Right.
about 10 hours, and then you change the flight and you take another flight from Moscow to Abakan, which is the capital of the next nearby republic, and that's about 5 hours, and then you get in a car or a taxi, and then it's about 5 hours driving through the mountains to Kazil.
Wow. And so Kazil is the capital then of Tuva?
Yes, Kazil is the capital of the Republic of Tuva.
Okay. Do you ever have your family come pick you up at the Moscow airport?
No, Moscow, but Abakan. Yes, so they drive
Abakan.
to the mountains to pick me up.
Okay, all right. So then you get, I know when we were talking privately before the show, you get to see all of this, and you were saying that it's almost better to take the long drive as opposed to
yes, because right now
a direct flight, right?
Flight from Moscow to Kazil.
Yes.
But it's a smaller plane, and it not allowing as big of a luggage compared to more bigger planes. So, and I always have lots of luggage. So I prefer, to take that longer way, not only for that reason, but because the ride through the mountains is scenic, is absolutely fantastic.
It must be beautiful. I know I've seen some of your pictures on your own private Facebook, and I love it. I love seeing the different pictures. And that's what gave me the impression that it was so diverse in the geography and the topography. Everything from, I see forests and I see, like slight sloping hills and so, and then all of a sudden I see you on this mountain and it's like bare, completely bare behind you, and there you are, you know, you're doing your drumming and stuff like that. It's just gorgeous. It really is. And I know I've asked you this before, so I'm just going to ask you, in relation to Lake Baikal, how far are you from Lake Baikal, like Tuva is?
It is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because that's where I studied languages at Irkutsk, which is the city next to the Baikal Lake. And
right.
It is 2 hours by plane from Kyzyl. There are planes that go from Kyzyl to Irkutsk. And
okay.
maybe 2.5 the most.
Okay. So were you educated then in, how do you pronounce it? Irkutsk? Irkutsk?
Yes.
Were you educated there? Did you have to go to school there, or did you have school in Tuva?
I went to Irkutsk next to the Baikal Lake because I wanted to study languages, and so I studied linguistics.
Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm going to dive into more of the spiritual stuff. So we get an idea of exactly where Tuva is in relation to everything. Now, with regards to the type of shamanism, the Tuvan shamanism, kind of like comparing it to the other forms of shamanism, if I can say that, to other forms in Siberia. What is distinct about Tuvan shamanism as opposed to other parts of Siberia or other parts of Russia?
First, I would like to say that it's not correct to compare because everybody has their shamans and their traditions. But I would say, like, if I would try to, say something about that I would say that tradition did not break, the shamanic tradition did not break, and I would say for the population in Tuva there are more shamans.
Okay. Okay.
Shamans.
Right. Now, when you said that the traditions didn't break, because I know at one point the Russian government had pretty well come in and obliterated all the shamans throughout Russia. And in regards to Tuva, do you think because of the location of where Tuva was and a little bit more isolated, was it harder for them to basically kill the shamans?
No, they actually came to Tuva as well, and they will. There is a title right now these days, Supreme Shaman of Tuva. There is such a title.
Right.
There is such a shaman, and there is a title Supreme Shaman of Russia, which started last year because it was an election, and Tuvan Shaman was elected to be Supreme Shaman of Russian Federation. And so,
wow.
So he is, I believe, in his 70s probably. So he says, he is very much into, he always talks about repressions. He always talks about how horrible that was. Because he was, he was young. He was very young when it was happening. And so he said that once the story is that he told the story that they put all of the shamans in a barrack, and put it on
barracks.
Put it on fire to burn them. And when he came back, there was still several shamans who stayed alive through the fire, and around those people there was big ice pieces.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Ice pieces.
Against all understanding. So all other shamans were burnt alive, and only several shamans stayed alive, and around them there was ice cubes. And one of the ice cubes, there was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, grandmother of that shaman who is a supreme right now. So that's his direct.
Wow.
So that
Now,
how do you think that it's possible? What?
wow. No kidding. You know, it's just like divine providence coming, you
Yes,
know,
the
in
spirit,
full fruition.
the spirits came and saved those shamans.
Definitely.
Yes.
Now, my impression of Tuvan shamanism is it's very it's open to women as well as to men. Now, we were having a discussion about that privately, that I want you to tell us the story about that, about what the original shaman was.
Well, it is believed that the original shaman was a woman, shamaness, and so it's not even like in Tuva. This is not even like never. You are actually the first person who ever said something about that. So like in Tuva or in Russia in general, this subject is not discussed because it's like it's very common for women to be.
It's accepted. It's totally accepted. And see, I think maybe here in Western society, we look to shamanism and we see more males in shamanism, and the way they're dressed. You know, you were saying in regards to the well, before we get into the other question that I wanted to ask you, right? I want to also say the one thing that I notice about Tuvan shamanism is the throat singing. Is that really sort of something that is very pronounced or indicative of Tuvan shamanism? Is the throat singing?
Tuvan shamanism, or not related to Tuvan throat singing, but it's the not.
Oh,
but they are two cultural phenomena. So
okay, tell us about that.
So throat singing is, it's phenomenal, and it's considered how it came through, like how it originated. It's considered to those nomads when they were in the nature, they were starting to imitate the nature, and it is considered that the spirits help them to make those sounds.
Okay.
And shamanism, like during any type of a ceremony, ritual, or sessions, right, healing sessions, there is if a person already had that ability to throat sing, they start singing, and whoever doesn't have that ability to sing just can't sing that, but they still make some sounds.
Okay, so in other words, in Tuvan shamanism, is there each shaman has their own specific ritual and working that they do to help their community? Like, do we have people that do bone setting? Are there healers? Are there other ones that just sing to keep the ritual going? How do they integrate?
Shamans are very, very diverse, and the common conception, I would say, in Western world that all shamans are equal. Like they think, like if you're a shaman, then they are pretty much all the same. But it's not the same at all, right? Because who a shaman becomes as the spirits enter the shaman's consciousness vastly depends on who that person was before spirits entered, which means that, let's say, someone who was, and I know those kind of shamans, so like someone who was a dancer, like literally a dancer, performer, if they become a shaman, then they are like performing even more, so they are really like magnificent. And somebody who was a throat singer and then he becomes a shaman, then of course he is even more enhanced. And so if somebody, so it really depends who that person was. But most shamans are able to do whole gamut of things. It's just that there is specialization simply because they are gravitating themselves more to something, and then
Oh, okay.
and they have great success with that. For instance, my the shaman that recognized me as a shaman when I was young, right? So who told me that the spirits of my ancestors came to him and told him that I'm a shaman. He was very like exceptional healer. So he was a bone setter, but he was also doing like any kind of healing. And some shamans are specializing mostly on divination.
Okay.
Because somehow the spirits that work with them really like that.
Right.
So, and some shamans are very good at ceremonies and rituals because the spirits that work with them really like that.
Right. Now we have one of our guests,
Melvin.
Melvin. I love Melvin. Melvin always has the best questions. Okay.
Very
And
thoughtful. He's very thoughtful in his question.
Yes, and his question is actually going to lead into my third question, in regards to what he is. I'm just going to read it out. What he's asking. Is it a choice to become a shaman, or is it a system where a person has to be chosen by an elder shaman or something more spiritual? Which leads to my question, in regards to who is your spiritual teacher and how did you get initiated? So it really leads into what Melvin had asked. Could you elaborate on that for us?
In traditional society, shamanic society, which what Tuva is, right? Nobody ever in their right mind would choose to be a shaman. It's impossible. It's not possible because it is, people fear it. Like it's like a plague. People are afraid of all of this very much. So because it's a big honor,
Right.
but it is a very heavy duty work. So
right.
it's work on all kinds of levels. So a person cannot choose to become a shaman, and because that depends, the saying that the definition of a shaman is someone who has the spirits who attach to that person consciousness, and that's what makes the person a shaman. So just the desire to be a shaman and going to study, take courses in shamanism, not going to make a person a shaman. So in my case, you can't be chosen by the elder shaman either, but elder shaman, which in my case happened, could recognize you, who would recognize you as a shaman. And when he told me that the spirits of my ancestors came and told him that I am a shaman, not to say that I did not believe it, to say nothing, because I could not understand how
did he know?
How did he know? No. He because the spirits of my ancestors.
Yeah.
Since he was a shaman, because since then he transitioned, and actually I want to say that he was such an famous. He was not only good; he was extremely famous. Even his robe, shamanic robe, was in display in our museum, Tuvan National Museum. It was like, and he was, when I was also working at the government of the Republic of Tuva for some time, and when I was working there at the Ministry of National Policy, Regional and International Affairs, it was Thursday, and it was a room where people from government employed him to so that they could come and see him, because he had a line of people starting lifeline at night. In the middle of the night, people would stand in line to get to him for a session.
Wow.
And so he helped me as well. He healed me from a condition with just moving his hands around me, and the condition that doctors told me that I need the operation, resolved itself the same day. The same day. Shamanism is such a fascinating subject because it really does things that is hard to believe with our logical mind. And so, yeah. So
I totally understand that. Yeah. No.
Yes. So he then invited me to be his interpreter in Germany, because at that moment I spoke very good German. And when I traveled with him and I was interpreting, when people would come in for a session, I would interpret from German to Russian and then back and forth. And then after third day, he told me that the spirits of my ancestors, who were shamans, came to him and told him that I am a shaman and that he needs to do a ritual for me to connect me to them so that I could do the kind of work he does. And when he said that, I was like, no, this is a big mistake. I am not a shaman. I can't possibly even like do what you do. That's not, I said, it's a mistake. And I did not believe him. And then he said that again, like in 3 months after we already came back. And again, I didn't believe him. And only the third time he said, because he said, when do you want to do the ritual? Connect what I could do, what he does. And the third time he said, did you tell your parents? I said, no, because I so did not believe that I did not tell anyone, because I did not take it seriously. Like I thought this is a mistake. And specifically because I also was very sick as a child, and a lot of times I spent at the hospitals for a lot of times in my life. So to think that I could help heal someone just made no sense to me at the time. And then when I told my parents, because he asked me to call upon my family, and they told me, until that day I did not know that on both sides, the grandfather of my father was a shaman, and his and grandmother of my father was a shamaness, and on my mother's side, her grandfather, her father's grandfather was a shaman too. I didn't, to that day I didn't know that, because it was they were hiding because of the repression. People were hiding. Whoever was in family that was a shaman, people were not telling anyone.
Right. They wanted to keep it to themselves because obviously they didn't want to be, killed by the government at the time, right? So they kept it quiet.
They were afraid, even when I became a shaman, an awakened shaman, because now that I understand that a person who's supposed to become a shaman is always a shaman, even before the initiation, since the birth. Yeah, and it was that I did not recognize that all my intuition, like I thought I have a good intuition, like I thought. And people thought I have she has a good intuition because everything I say comes through. So, and the family thought that I have very strong, like a core. They knew that I can't be persuaded into anything. Like they can't be swayed into this way or that, but I was very, very strong.
Very strong-minded, right?
Very, very strong-minded, yes. So they were afraid after, this is already these days, right? So this is already no repression. They were still afraid to tell people that I became a shaman.
Really?
Yes.
Because of how strong of a personality you are, and that some people would fear that energy, or
no, because they were there is the fear of other people knowing that their daughter is now a shaman. The fear that was like in the bones, because there were repression, right?
Right.
So that I would be killed. And I myself was also afraid to tell people that I'm a shaman. It's very deep. The fear to let people know is very deep.
Wow. So your fear was still ingrained from what had happened in the past.
Yeah.
And your fear was that somehow you would be killed by someone, or was it the fear of the spirit somehow putting you in danger?
First of all, spirits do put you in danger as well, but to make you a shaman, there is a definitely
Absolutely.
yes. But I was afraid that yes, that I will be persecuted because became so different, that I'm no longer a human being in a way that other people are who are not shamans.
Right. Okay.
Because being
Okay.
shaman,
Interesting. So give me 1 sec. I'm just going to adjust my phone here. Sorry, because my battery is running low.
Because
okay.
Being a shaman,
Sorry.
It's like a different race. It's like once a person is a true, authentic shaman, it is like a different race. It's not like now she's doing this. No, it changes entire structure of the brain, entire structure of the consciousness, and person becomes less and less human as they go. The older the shaman is, the less human they are.
Wow. So in other words, you're part of this world and you're part of that other world where all the spirits and the other spirits of the shamans are as well. Am I correct in believing that?
Imagine if someone is connected at all times to someone who is not human, meaning that they are not alive, they don't have physical body, and that person is connected at all times and then does also work for others. So the percentage of time when they are not in the ordinary state of consciousness is very high. So, and because of such a deep, so shaman is the one who has deeper connections with non-physical beings than the physical. So
absolutely.
So then you can't help that your way of thinking changes very, very much, because you no longer view things the same way you viewed before the spirits came. And yeah, you no longer
right
like them.
So it's like your ancestral spirits take over, like in our tradition and in how I believe it to be and how Jean-Jerome sees it.
Mm-hmm.
This is your now we did talk about your non-physical teacher, as you put it. The original ones were female. Am I correct? And then can you tell me the story? And then all of a sudden it was this other teacher that had come?
The initiation happens to each shaman only through ancestral spirits, because
right.
that has
Absolutely.
to be like a bloodline.
Right.
And in the first spirits who I was able to feel at first in my meditations and then see and hear were ancestral shamans on both sides, and I were able to hear their names, the Tuvan names, and I never heard their names before. I never knew. And then I called my parents and I asked, who are those? What are those names? And then they told me that that's the name of the shaman that was on my father's side and the shaman that was on my mother's side. So they were the ones who initiated, because without their bloodline, it cannot happen. And then once they initiated, they were the initiation process, the very first one, because in shamanism there are endless initiations, and in fact, the first initiation is 9 physical years. The first initiation is 9 years, physical years of life.
Wow.
Like the first period where they started doing 4 rituals for me, so that the first ritual that they did for me was so that I remember that I am a shaman. because I did not only remember that I am a shaman, I was refusing to believe that I am a shaman.
Right.
I was
Right.
so afraid of it. I was afraid of the whole thing. I had very big fear for shamanism. And that first ritual lasted 2 nights because I was so resistant to remember. I didn't want to remember.
Wow.
Because I it's I wanted to have my normal life. I wanted
Right.
to be a normal woman, like I wanted to be normal. And so
Right.
so then during
So
this,
life changed. No, go ahead. Go ahead. So life changed for you, definitely, after the initiation.
day and night. There is no comparison.
Wow.
Because before, see, like when you're a normal person, you have to deal only with what you see. Like you have to learn how to get along with people, right? Who you see in the physical reality. So you see
Absolutely.
them, like you need to learn how to get along with people. And then suddenly this whole worlds, realities, all these beings become visible and hearable to you, and you like go, what? And then you have to learn how to deal with all of them. That's a lot.
To integrate them.
To
integrate them with yourself and the world, right?
No, to establish a relationship.
Oh, right.
It's a personal relationships. It's not esoteric. It's not symbolic. It's literal relationships. Like for instance, I have 3 fairies. I know it's gonna sound funny. So
no.
Okay, so there are 3 fairies, right? So
you're talking to the right audience here.
Okay, so
yes.
So when I first started to see the spiritual reality, those 3 fairies appeared, and I never saw fairies before, and I recognized that they might be fairies because they have those wings, they look beautiful, long hair, and they're all this like so beautiful, and they they started talking to me and saying that they want to work with me on a contract-like base. And I was like, what? Like, who are you? Like, what are you going to do with me? Like, I don't get it. So, and they explained what they're going to do. And ever since then, every single session that I do, they are with me. So it's a personal relationship. There is there's one specific gnome that helps me with each fire ceremonies that I do outside. So there is one, like it's not others, like I could contact others, but there is one that is always with me, who is it's like a team. And so there is all other members with whom you have specific relationships. Yes. And so a shaman is someone who has this team that it's not just changes all the time. It's you could keep in contact with other beings, and you could do like in physical reality. I could have my my team or my friends, but I could go somewhere else and meet somebody else. It's the same, but still your main true teams are the same.
Okay. Oh wow. So
and the longer the shaman is the shaman, the bigger is the team. So the older the shaman is, the better it is.
Right. So the more allies, the more spiritual allies you accumulate as you go through time, and the ones that need to work with you, right?
The ones that have a strong relationship. It's a relationship.
Okay. Now
you give me you. It's a very exchange-like. They don't work for for free.
Right. No, they don't. They want something from you, right? And you have to, it's a give and take, right? No, exactly. For sure.
I have to feed them also.
Okay. Now, I just want to also mention, since you said you also come from a family a lineage, like a family of shamans. Your sister is also a shaman, and I posted something on Ancestral Eyes to advertise for your sister because she's also a shaman. Now, how did your parents take that? Now, two of their daughters are both shamans. Like, what was that?
Keep going. I'll be right back. Keep going.
Sure.
Okay.
My sister is 12 years younger than me, and so she only recently became a shaman. Recently, I don't know, like a year and a half, something like that, or even 2 years right now. Can't tell.
Right.
So she was, she was initiated as well. So it just happened. I'm very happy that this happened because now she helps me with the things and I help her with the things. So like I have someone who understands how it is, what it feels like,
Right.
So I'm very happy that my sister became a shaman as well. My parents, of course, at first that was a big shock for them.
Right. I could imagine.
Yes, because they only have 2 daughters, right? And so that's their children. And they hope that if I am not normal, so hopefully the second one, that younger one, will be normal. Turns out no. Of course, they're also very honored because it is a great honor.
Right.
But they know,
obviously,
but they see how hard that is. They see the more than average person, the inside of it. So
right, the struggles that you have to overcome in order to be a shamaness.
Yeah.
So we have a question here from Father Fred Ashmead, one of our former guests on our show.
Mm-hmm.
His question is, are shamans permitted to officiate weddings for couples and do other societal customs?
Yes, so shamans at the weddings, it's how you call it, so to officiate. So they don't
officiate.
They do blessing ceremony. So at the wedding, shamans could do blessing ceremony. But what's even more common is when people make that transition into non-physical, then shamans are invited to help the soul to transition easier and to the right place, so to speak, and to know if they need something more from their family or not. So it's even more accustomed to when funerals and all of that. So it's connected with
right.
So
right. So they do.
So let me ask you a question.
Go ahead, Jean-Jerome.
On that vein, there are many things that, as you've been talking, I've been making notes or things that drawing parallels between Ifa, Orisa, and even Vodun and your shamanistic tradition. But one question. So, for instance, let's start with this one. Father Ashmead introduced an interesting sort of angle or part. Since a shaman is linked through your ancestral spiritual guide and your family of spirits that work with you, which is very similar to Ifa Orisa, where Ifa Babala works with Ifa, which is basically the divinity of wisdom and divination, but he also works with a slew of divinities and also ancestors and spirits that support his work, and to which, as you said, it's a relationship you build. It's a relationship of offering, of maintaining a symbiotic relationship of support. You have to offer, you have to give in order to receive. Absolutely. It's not just one way, right? Absolutely. It's something you have to build. But let's say in the case of a marriage, like many people will come within our tradition, will come, not always, but they will sometimes come to know if their chosen partner or at important moments of their life, if their chosen partner, let's say, is the right person for them, if is the person within their path or their destiny or compatible. In a case like that, do you have, prior to big events like that, do you have people that come to a shaman?
Yes.
That's number one. And number two is the sort of addendum to that is the divination or the message that is given or transmitted directly or only through possession or through the word or the
Trance.
hearing of spirit or trance,
Mhm.
or through, do you use any other instrument of divination? Like we had our guest Sangoma guest Rebecca Rogerson, which they use bones. They use a series of objects to divine. We use the opele or equele, or we use the ikins, the palm nuts, to divine, on many matters. In your case, how does that, in the Tuvan shamanistic tradition, how does that work?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So that yes, people do in fact come a lot of times before making big decisions. And before I was, a shaman, when I was young, I wanted to come. Specifically, when I went to shaman, is because before I make a big decision. So when you like, it's so big, you're afraid, you don't know like which way would be better. So yes, people do when they have some kind of dilemma and things like that. And divination, specifically Tuvan forms of divination are several. One of them, the most common, is Huvanak, is 41 little river stones that are brought very little from 41 rivers. So it takes a while for a shaman to collect 41, from 41 geographical rivers.
Right.
Wow.
Uh,
Right.
and then they throw they ask a question, they throw those little 41 stones and like pebbles type of.
Yes.
And some of the shamans are specialized on that. They are so good at it. They see everything just within the stones. And so another also Tuvan tradition is use the kuzungu, which is the shaman's mirror. So shaman so this is the only object that like shaman could work without anything, like without drum, without fire, without anything. But this is the only thing that Tuvan shamans need in order to work. So this is the shaman's mirror called kuzungu in Tuvan. So they stare or gaze at the mirror, and because while they could they sometimes ask a person to hold it between the hands and ask the question, then they will take it back and they look at it, and then because it is you
Spirit.
How do you hear the answer, right? So each shaman, depending on their extrasensory perceptions or who they were as well before spirits came, they have different methods. So for instance, some shamans only do through objects like the stones, right? So some shamans hear right away. So hear it. Just hear it right away. So hear it. They don't need to drum. They don't need to make any kind of additional moves. They just hear it. And then some shamans, also another one, I'm gonna finish that sentence afterwards. So another form of divination that is very strong in Tuva is doing the sacrifice fire. So you build the fire, right? You put offerings in it, and then as you put offerings, you look at the fire. So you read the fire. So the spirits help you read the fire. And interesting, like about that, some shamans knew, like these days shamans. I know one of shamaness that is doing that way. She builds the fire, right? And she takes a picture of. She takes series of pictures of the fire, and and let's say a family came and said somebody got murdered in their family, and they need to know, and they have an idea that this person could be, causing that, like who was involved, right? So she could go ask them to bring offerings. They could go to the forest, build the fire. She would take pictures. This is how she works. Specifically, is that everybody's different. And then she showed me pictures of the fire that, like specifically that example that I'm giving you right now. I was blown away. There is like in this stills of the fire, there was a letter A, like visible with the naked physical eye. Like literally, a letter A is so visible, like you can't not see it.
Wow.
So and things like that. So they would ask if the person is dead or not. Like she could do this. So, and some people not take any pictures. Of course, that I only saw one person like that, but I also like take pictures of the fire because you see later on so many things in it.
Right.
But so you just stare at the fire, and you see how the fire moves, and the spirits help you to know. So basically, and there is of course a method of when possession, right? And so then the spirits enter you physically, and then they are speaking and answering the question.
In possession.
Yeah, in a possession.
So just to recap, because I know a lot of people are following and a lot of people are trying to draw parallels to understand. Yeah. So there is the transmission of message or divination through a semi-trance, messages from your ancestral spiritual guide or any other helping spirit or ancestors or so on. There is the mirror. There are the pebbles, and I will ask as a corollary later, why 41? Because for us, for instance, we use the number 16 is very important because they're the 16 princes of Ifa, the 16 major Odu. But I'm curious to know later on why 41. Why the different rivers I understand, but that number 41.
I don't know why 41. I have no idea.
And then you're talking about also so mirror gazing into a mirror, gazing into a fire.
Yes.
So the ability to see messages of spirit through fire.
Yes.
And then you said something else, fire, and there was another method as well. Those are the major.
Fire just by either just gazing or taking a picture.
Still picture. Okay. And last is possession, like full blown possession.
Yeah. And which is very rare. Like it doesn't happen very often. And then the one that I like the most is when you just take, it's called kamlanya. So when you do the offerings and then you start, let's say a person came with a question and you do the offerings and then you drum, and during the drumming you see all the visions. So you have the visions and you just then you translate the visions.
Okay, visions as well.
Okay. Now, there was a question that Malvin had asked. Can we bring that question back? Malvin says, sadly, there are scammers everywhere that you know of. Are there people who pretend to be shamans? And if they're found out they're fakes, is there any punishment they must face? Also, are there established rules that Tuvan shamans must follow? Good question.
So he's saying if there are scammers, or if
yes, are there fakes or scammers in shamans in Tuva?
In Tuva, no, because it's not possible to be like. How would you be a scammer if you don't have results? Like, see, shamanism is about results. Shamanism is not about interesting. Shamanism is about people having real problems. They're having a shaman. And if that person is just saying that he or she is a shaman and then people come and there is no result,
no, it just doesn't happen. Because because I get the impression in order, like for yourself, you have to have that hereditary trait in being recognized as a shaman. And you, like yourself, you were reluctant to do that. So it's less likely to be a scammer or someone who's fake, considering the amount.
Because it is every shaman
Exactly.
goes through such every shaman
Initiation.
goes through such incredible difficulties when the spirits enter. The whole, life falls apart. There is if you're not strong, if you are not strong enough, you could end up at the crazy house. So it's like there is so much involved in becoming a shaman. There is no fake Tuvan shamans. It's not possible.
Right.
But I know that there are people who are these days who are not from Tuva and who like the idea of being this spiritual
right
someone who can do things, and they study and then they think that they're already shamans, and then they are like advertising themselves as such. That I know.
That I think in North America, what you see are practitioners of shamanism, but they are not shamans. They can't be.
Big difference.
It is a big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference. We have the same distinction. Like you could be a part of a belief system. You could be initiated through the first initiation and be a part of the religious practice or the spiritual practice. But that doesn't make you a priest.
Yes.
Right? Like what makes you a priest is, again, in Ifa we say the Babalao is born, it's not made. You are Babalao since you come from heaven to earth.
Yes.
And it is in this journey that Ifa reveals itself through divination about your destiny. We use the term very strongly about destiny.
Yes.
And basically reminds us as a that we were in heaven. Right?
Who we were before we came here and went to fulfill that destiny.
Exactly. And as you said, it's interesting because again, many times it is your family, your ancestral family ancestors, and I'm going to make a distinction for our audience again. Our family ancestors, what we call Egun, right, or even some Egungun, is not the same as the Joto or the ancestral spiritual guide. Right? The Egun are family members, people that have passed away that represent your blood lineage. That you can check. You might find even from a DNA that you have, related to a particular area centuries ago, so that you're in that culture. But your ancestral spiritual guide is usually somebody of an elevated spiritual refinement, and who is meant to be your guide, literally. In Spanish, we say tu guía espiritual, the spiritual guide, which is sent comes down with you from heaven, with your soul and your spirit, and his mission is to help you to complete your destiny, your mission on earth.
Yes.
So for everybody listening to us, so that they can see the difference between.
And what it's called.
Thank you,
as I said before, in my case, my teacher, it is called in literature, in shamanic literature, ecstatic spouse.
Interesting.
Yes.
Spouse. So I prefer to call him as if he would say in the beginning that he is ecstatic spouse, I would be like, what? No, I would be like, it's too much to take. But non-physical spiritual teacher works much better.
Yes.
No, and reality, I can see why they would use something like that because of the sometimes the process of possession or trance and a feeling like
connected at all times.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the biggest thing. Like one of our former guests and a good friend of mine, which we've been doing research for and collaborating for 7 years now, Bokono Dafoji he was in Uruguay. His ancestor, his Joto, is Abomale, is the same thing. Like when you can see the integration of that ancestral spiritual guide with Danielle. So when when it's Danielle speaking, and when it's the ancestor Abomale speaking or coming through or giving him messages in that moment. But that relationship is really of a in his case is of a mentor, a teacher, a father to a son. right? Because
Yes.
there's an immense spiritual clarity and vision, and
Yes.
a long ancestral memory
Yes.
ancestral memory as well. I also wanted to for the people, you said something which is very true. It's interesting again for shaman it's the same thing. In Ifa in the Odun or wandering or Wanitan Shela or wandering Iwori, it says the roots of Ifa are bitter, but the fruits are sweet. And that particular Odu Ifa speaks about the spiritual journey of a priest, and again, being a priest as opposed to somebody just initiated, and that quite often the spirit or Ifa shakes up your life. You talked about, it can throw your life upside down,
Yeah.
Yes.
and the things that and the structures that you had in your life that you thought were your foundation are sometimes broken, and in order to free you,
Certainly.
in order
Yeah.
to be able to practice.
In order to totally lose the identity. So in shamanism, what happens is like they break you down, so to speak, to the point, yes, to the point of and it's like artificial suffering. So it's not like they take away everything from you, so you are suffering, so that your identity, who you thought you were, is broken down.
And reborn. You're reborn again.
Yes, and then little by little, it's not the process that goes fast, because see, it's connected. So shamanism is a state of consciousness, right? So shaman simply has a different state of consciousness, but since consciousness changes in consciousness don't happen fast, that's why we keep reincarnating, because every little bit of something helps. So it takes a little bit, yes.
Yes, definitely. It takes some time
But
in that.
yeah.
No,
What was
that
it? Go ahead, Jean-Jerome.
no, that's very interesting. Again, that process of basically breaking structures, going through those situations into an awakening. And you mentioned something which was also earlier on, which I also want to highlight for all those, especially coming from Ifa and other belief systems, especially Afro-Cuban or diasporan West African belief systems, to show the commonalities. And a lot of these show is to show that spirit may present or dress differently, but the essence is the same.
Is the same,
Right?
exactly.
And that is like for a babalao. It said a babalao is that when he's initiated, he goes through many initiations in his life. And the first, you talk 9 years, for us is usually 7 to 9 years, are the years where the babalao is considered to be a child. In other words, Ifa sees him as a child, and it says Ifa, takes him by the hand, and then until he can walk a little bit after the 9th year, and then he begins to initiate himself. In other words, it is a stage where there's a greater integration of the spiritual belief system of Ifa, of the Orisha, of the ancestors, and basically, that they walk hand in hand and more integrated with the priest. And from what you described, is very similar, almost identical concept, at least, or construct in the Tuvan shamanism.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask you, in regards to your shamanism, when you go back to Tuva, is that where you really feel strongly the spirits and the essence of the Tuvan shamanism, or can you go to where you live right now and go to the closest park and still feel that? Can you feel it everywhere?
Here is the thing. I don't have to go anywhere to feel anything, because I am wherever I am. So shaman is someone who is able to create the center of the earth, universe, wherever he or she is. So
thank you.
I could connect while I'm here. Like right now, this afternoon, I did a ritual together with my sister and another shaman for this full moon and eclipse that we are having today. and it was a ritual to help to release the old programming, old way of thoughts, words, and actions. And so I was here, right? But we just calculated the timing, so we are doing it at the same time. So not time. Space in shamanic healing or in anything shamanic does not matter, because I'm doing also a lot of remote sessions since at the very beginning. It doesn't matter where the person is.
Right. Okay. All right. So, okay. So with regards to where you're living now, do you hold workshops like for people who are interested in coming to you to train, or let's say they come to you for healings? Do you have a place where you hold this? Do you go somewhere, or do you allow them in your house? How does that work for you?
Well, for the last 6 years, I have workshops, lectures, retreats, and one expedition. So they happen at different locations. And for the last 2 years, I started a meetup group that is called Shamanic Club. So this is the last 2 years only, and I think since then I did like 60 something events in the last just 2 years, and
wow,
yes, in different range of events. And yes, and when everything is normal, like for healing sessions, if people live in the tri-state area, they come to my living room. And if people live in some other countries or very like California, like far away, I do remote sessions.
Okay. So you can do it remotely and physically if they come to you.
The group
right?
that we have.
Okay, that's awesome. Zarina, one of our audience and a good friend of ours. You carry it within you, so obviously it doesn't matter, right?
It does not matter, because see, like the place from which let's just take shamanic healing session, right? When somebody is asking that they, let's say, not feeling well, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, it doesn't matter. And the place from which I am doing the healing is not coming from the physical body of mine.
Right.
So, of course, when someone is near me, they have additional, I have additional effect on people because I could touch them, right? They smell, they hear, right? So they see me. So while through the distance session, it's the same thing. It just they're not affected by, let's say, my incense, like my juniper that I'm burning, right? So they don't smell that. I can do shamanic massage. They can't hug me, right? So, but everything else, the actual place from where it happens, it's not from the physical.
Right. So what would you say is better? Obviously, somebody coming to you physically if there was a healing that really required it, right?
I would say it does not matter, but for people who never seen me in the physical body, like standing next to me, and if they don't quite fully understand how it works, for them it's just simply maybe it's more beneficial to actually see me, so that
in person.
Yes, so that they let's say
experience it.
Yes. But once connected to me in the physical way, then it also becomes not important to me where I am.
Okay. So in other words, what I'm understanding is it would be easier or more beneficial if they saw you in person, first of all, to get a healing or to connect with you. And then afterwards, it doesn't matter if they're overseas or elsewhere. Is that correct?
That would be beneficial for someone who doesn't understand fully how it works.
Okay.
Yes,
okay. All right.
So let me ask you a question. I now that you mentioned that about connection and everything else. So, for instance, you live in the area of New Jersey, correct?
Edgewater.
Okay, so for all of our audience listening, New York and New Jersey is one of the most highest per capita
Yes.
practitioner of Ifa, Orisa, Santeria, Palo, and all the African diasporic religions. So my question is,
Mhm.
with your gift of sight and from the optic of your ancestral spiritual guide, have you had, have you been had clients that are initiated or come from these other belief systems or from a different belief system? How does your ancestral guide, how does the Tuvan shamanic belief system interpret or see spiritualities that come from other lands? In other words, like for instance, we've talked about spirits and ancestors. You talked about fairies like Ewing.
Yeah.
What about do you have any structure of divinities? In other words, spirits that are not human, like a fairy, but more like what we call Orisha or Irumale. In other words, spiritual beings that occupy the two realms, the spirit realm and the earthly realm. They're not human, but they present as a different energy. Do you have an equivalent of that in the Tuva,
Divinity.
like a divinity?
Of course, there is a. First of all, like in shamanism, it is recognized that everything is alive. Everything is alive. So you may encounter all kinds of spirits. It could be as simple as you could encounter a spirit of the building. You could encounter a spirit of the river. You could encounter a spirit of a rock, of a tree, or like all types of consciousnesses that are not human.
But do you work with them? But do you actually, like for instance, in Ifa Orisa, we work and in on the Vodun side, we work with spiritualities or energies, through our ancestors, through
Yes.
divination, through our ancestors. We work with energies that are these higher beings or very high energy, high consciousness. Do you actively enlist, like you mentioned, for instance, you enlist or you have a team of fairy,
Yeah.
right? Which in Yoruba we call Iwin, is one of the descriptions of Iwin, and appears in the Oduvifa Otura Owanri. Otura Owani speaks of the Iwin, the fairy people.
Yes.
So, like fairy, but different other types of spirituality. Are there a pantheon or
Yes.
like a cosmology for them?
There is yes, cosmology, yes. So there is also gods and goddesses.
Yes, for instance.
Yes.
Like the different
Yes, that's what we.
Yes, there are different deities. There are like in the lower world, because in shamanism it's like divided in three worlds, right? So
Right.
middle,
Okay, very interesting.
lower.
Okay.
In the lower world, there is all these demons that are having, like, they also have gradation, very hierarchical. Everything is very hierarchical.
Right.
Okay.
And there are shamans. Shamans are basically divided into different type of shamans. Like, let's say I'm a white shaman.
Interesting.
And there are black shamans.
Interesting.
So, which means that it means, like, one time when I had a workshop at the Rubin Museum of Art in New York, and somebody asked me in the audience, like, why do you call yourself white if you're Asian? And it has nothing, like, the white doesn't have.
Yeah, I understand.
But it has to do with where the shaman draws the power. So white, because shaman, the power doesn't come from the power of the shaman doesn't come from the shaman, from the person.
Sure.
It comes from other places, and so white shamans are drawing their power from upper world, from upper
Right.
levels, and from communication with gods and goddesses, with very high evolved, very compassionate beings. And so those type of shamans are very good at inspiration, explanation, and like wisdom, you know,
Okay.
and blessings. And there are black shamans who draw their power from lower worlds, and then there are all kinds of you know, demon demon-like beings who have
Mhm.
different degree or different state of consciousness, and they are very good at removing all kinds of what is it called in English? Curses and much more than curses. What are they called in English when they are trying to kill you?
Now this is getting very, 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 very interesting.
Yes.
Now we're talking. Now
This
we're
is
talking.
this
That
is
is
right
gonna
up
be
Jean-Jerome's alley now. We're
this is
we're
my,
getting into his
this
territory.
my territory.
Yes.
Okay.
So I could like talk to you like about like demonology, you know, but every shaman, whether they are white or black or something else, there is also a term like a yellow shaman. Yellow shaman is a shaman who is highly influenced by the Buddhism practice, like Buddhism.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yes,
Interesting.
they incorporated a lot of Buddhist, practices in their practice. So. But every shaman, regardless of where they draw their power from, they need to know how to communicate. Like, let's say, even though I'm a white shaman, I know how to, and by this time already I have a contract, so to speak, with the lower world and have my own recognized name there. And I like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's
Oh, I'm really enjoying this. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, now you have my like undivided.
Yes, and in order to like if the black shaman is already like having those beings helping him to remove all these curses, and what is the other word in English for when
Yeah, curses, or witchcraft, or
Curses.
negative witchcraft.
Hexes.
Hexes, or
but stronger, curses I guess would be the word. But so the white shaman has to I guess work for it a little more. So like the white shaman has to also go through his or her own difficulties with the connected to the witchcraft and like spirit fighting, so to speak. So because every shaman is first and foremost is what is the word? Not a fighter, but warrior.
a warrior.
Every
Yes,
shaman is absolutely a warrior.
a
Right.
spiritual warrior. A spiritual warrior.
Whether they are white or black, they are first and foremost warriors. And then you develop that skill and relationship with the lower realms.
So let me ask you a question then. So I mean, understanding two realms. You mentioned the white dealing with the higher realms, divinities of higher light or vibration.
Yes.
The divinities or gods, if we want to use the term with a small g, that deal with some people would call demons or whatever, but I don't like to use that terminology. But basically darker, like what we call dun dun,
Lower vibration.
Lower vibration.
The vibration that what we call right and left. Right being the softer, gentler, higher, and Osin meaning the darkness, but also the strength, the passion, the strength, and the ability to as you say fight other lower vibrations. You what we call the red, you call the yellow. The influence of Buddhism is being for us. The red is the person which uses both the black and the white and balances them out, and will go for one or for the other, right?
Yes, we do have them as well. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the red, but now
everyone has to know how to do everything basically.
So if one was to try to learn, for instance, like right now, anybody can go online, for instance, or go to a babalao, and we have a very, although it's very, sometimes always growing, but we have a set number of Orisha, Irumale, both of the right and the left. We have the concept of Aje, Iami, which I'll get to as a separate question. But
Yes.
is there a place in your scripture online where you have a listing of the beings that are higher. In other words, or like, in Buddhism or Hinduism, you have, bodhisattvas. In Buddhism, you have Hindu deities or gods.
Even
You don't have a set pantheon. So in saying that, are you influenced? Like, will you work with divinities or energies from other cultures or other pantheons through your ancestral?
Yes. I think why this is very interesting. Yeah, it's a good question that you asked. I think the reason why we don't have it in that type of structured, very structured way, is because, see, shamanism it's a before religion, right? So it's the ancestor of all religions.
Right.
So and true shaman receives knowledge not from the books and not from somebody made already structure for them. So shaman is direct from the spiritual beings.
Right.
I could say, for instance, like there is this being, like there is this goddess White Tara in Buddhism. She works healing. She's like a healing goddess. In Buddhism, they have different colors of taras, and they all represent something different. So White Tara is the one who helps with healing. And so I'm very connected to her directly. It's direct initiation, so to speak. I could even say how it happened when it happened.
If as long as we don't, again, we always say, as long as you don't betray anything which should remain, secret.
Yeah, any oaths or secrets, you don't need to tell us.
You're not obliged to tell, but as far as you are able to, please go ahead.
Yes, I want to say that also the interesting thing is that only people think that when shamans say something, that they could learn and then run with it. Like some people think like that. But the thing is that 70%, 75 to 80% of real teachings are all closed. So like I can whatever I'm sharing for all these years, it's only 25. It's very little percentage compared to the actual knowledge, shamanic knowledge.
Right.
Because it's not possible to share it. It's a cult. It's hidden.
A cult, right.
Right. It's something that's only revealed to the shaman at the time by the spiritual entities and the ancestors you work with.
Yes, and even from shaman to shaman, that knowledge differs because of their readiness to receive it. Because as human beings, we are limited, right? So all the actual teachings, so what we see and able to share, only very little percentage. Either way.
Okay.
Right.
But I'm saying that my connection to White Tara specifically, I could tell because this is not hidden. It just shows you how it works, and how just through symbol your consciousness is why symbols are so important, because your consciousness could be activated just from the symbol.
Okay.
And so if you like, do you want me to share?
Sure, of course.
So I have in Buddhism they have tankas, which is like this can you see like this?
Yes.
It's like icon with some kind of being, right?
Yes.
So, and I have lots of them in my place, and one of them is a White Tara, and it is in my bedroom. And I used to come and sit like it's on the like red chair that I do my meditation, and White Tara is across the bed and it's on the wall.
Okay.
One time I was doing meditation, and suddenly it's gonna sound really strange, but
nothing will strange.
Oh no, it won't.
Not to us. Trust me.
Not us.
That's why I'm gonna share. So I suddenly saw how this the outline of the White Tara on this tanka started to energetically change and come out, like as if it was
towards you,
flat, and now it became like a
three-dimensional.
Yes, yes. So it came out like this. And my body, like I was sitting in a Western position with my legs down, my body started to like have like a very effect. Like I started like to make this kind of movement. My hands
Right.
and legs became very, very hot. And here started very, very, very hot. And I've heard the voice that said, I am white terror. And that I'm going to help you to when you're doing healing work sessions, and that I'm going to help you with diagnosis.
With what? Sorry.
It's having diagnosis, like to
Diagnosis.
Diagnosis.
diagnosis,
Yes.
to say
Yes.
what it is.
Very good.
Right.
Very good.
Wow.
So this is how initiation directly happens. So it's like
Right.
my consciousness was at a state rate that was ready to receive
Accept.
what is already was available at all times, but my consciousness was not ready because I had the tanka for a year before that happened.
Okay. Okay.
I know a few people that in the shamanic mediums, elegum, who have had very similar experiences. Some very recently as well. So
Yeah.
I know a few that will remain nameless, but we'll talk of that offline. Offline, we can talk
We'll
about.
talk about that offline. Okay. Yes.
So we're familiar with this.
We're familiar.
We're
We
familiar.
definitely are
Yeah.
familiar with that.
We're familiar with this type of experience. So that's.
Yes.
I tell you, you came to the right group of people because nothing that comes out of your mouth
Glad that
is
you're-
going to sound like, oh my God. So you're definitely
What's that?
the right group.
I'm glad that you're not going to talk behind my back, like
No,
really out there.
Oh, God, no.
Your family.
No, you're family now. You're family. You're
Absolutely.
part of the family.
You are most adopted right now.
Thank
Uh,
you.
So one topic which we had spoken offline. Now that we're talking about, we talked about the goddess and that type of spiritual revelation or communication or initiation. We talked about, you're a shaman's assistant. In your case, fairies, which in Yoruba we call Iwin.
No, but I have lots of them. This I just spoke out about them, so because
Right.
it's more like accepted to people.
Right.
Fairy sounds
Yeah.
so cute, you know what I mean? So that's why
Yeah.
I mentioned about them.
No problem. And then, but one thing we talked about is you have a special gift as well in your shamanic practice, which is shared by other traditions, especially First Nations in North America, which is spirit guides, animal totem or spirit guides. Can you
Wow.
tell us? Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect and how that works?
That's my favorite topic.
Uh-huh.
Okay, perfect. Let's do it.
Because see, when I started to see spiritual dimensions, and I started to see these beings, right, and including fairies as well, and then I started to see that every single person has animal shape next to them. So it's so I was like stunned. I could not like comprehend, how, why, and what for. And then I've learned and I've seen that I apparently have 14 power animals. And so when I was able to see them and they started to, show themselves to me and tell me what they can do for people, like what exactly, because what I like the most about spirituality is that it's that you finally start to understand that there is nothing random and that everything has specific purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a very specific purpose. It's like they're all these spirit guides that I'm also connected to. They're very specialized. So they're not like specialists in everything. They're usually specialists in something like one.
Right.
Like
Right.
and
Right.
so every human being by their birthright, so to speak, is born with at least one power animal. And power animal is an energy structure in the form of a pattern, in the form of a specific animal that has corresponding to that shape characteristics and separate from that person consciousness. And to me, it was mind-blowing. Because imagine you have someone who belongs to you. That's how usually people start to understand it. So it feels like it belongs to you. But if we go even deeper, then actually what happens is it is a deeper part of you.
Okay.
But it's hard for people to understand. So at first is easier to understand that you have them. But actually, to be truer, they are part of you. They are your deeper part that is more knowing that the parts of you that is personality part with a tag name, in my case, this lifetime, Larisa, or in your Teresa, right? Or Jean-Jerome. So, and it's like every person has someone who has different than their own thoughts. Like what you think that you, like the thought process that happens in your mind, and you think it's like, you know this, like you think like this about this, or you've learned this. So there is someone nearby, right? Someone that belongs to you or is you, right? As I already said, that has different opinion than you about everything you are doing or saying or wanting to do. And that opinion usually is way broader, way wiser, way more interesting than what you could come up with.
Right.
When I understood that, through my power animals and then seeing others, it's like people are walking around like handicapped, not understanding that they have this, again, I use this word team, like let's say somebody has two power animals, right? It's like as if you have at all times two, for the sake of conversation, to use the word friends, because hard to use other words. Friends who love you totally, accept you, always with you, and know everything about your past, your present, and future, and who only agenda is for you to become the best version of you, for you to move from this point A to other, to B point. So
right. They help you.
They help you through what?
Your journey of life.
Yes, they're supposed to help you, and that gut feeling that everybody talks about, that intuition, it all comes from that part, from that deeper part, from this animalistic part that knows everything. So that gut feeling is not yours. Gut feeling is from your power animal. Those intuitive signs that you have, they come from your power animal part.
Fascinating.
And to connect with them, like through movement, like shamanic power animal dance, right? Through any other, like rattling or drumming.
Yes.
Or through meditation. It's something that no other spiritual practice could give. It's unbelievable feeling. You know why? Because imagine, like, you always think of yourself as this human being, and suddenly through drumming, movement, or some like shamanic practices, right? You catch yourself as, and for everyone it happens in a different way, depending on their developed extrasensory perceptions, right? Or how easily they go into expanded state of consciousness, or shamanic state of consciousness, or trance, right? Depends on all of these things. But I see people in and out all the time who never thought they could, like, they thought only shamans can do this, or no, everybody can do that. Everybody could feel them, because we have them for a reason. So not like to not to be able to feel them or see them goes against the whole purpose of them being with you. So everybody could see them, everybody could hear them, feel them through practice. And that practice of shamanic movement or rattling or drumming.
Right.
Or journeying.
Okay, and part of that journeying you can do through meditation, through drumming and that.
Yeah.
And it's connecting with that power animal that helps you to establish the link with yourself on a different level, that different aspect of yourself as an animalistic part of you, correct?
Because you know what? Yes, because you know, the moment you get a glimpse of your power animal, like for me, it happens first in the face. Like I could suddenly start feeling as if with my eyes closed or open, it doesn't matter to me. So like suddenly I feel in a very realistic way. I start feeling like as if my face like starts like, ooh, like morph. And
right.
I start feeling as if this is not my face any longer. And I start feeling like some animal, or like I start feeling it in, then after face, for me it happens with my palms. I start feeling either, you know, the claws or the hooves or whatever they are, or talons. So and so like I feel them already inside of my physical body of a human being, right? But the gradation of how, like the stages of how it happens is it's differ from people to people. And at first for me it also was not like that. At first it was just I would see an eye. Like in my meditation I would see an eye that is looking at me.
Yes.
And that was not human. And that eye usually is like sideways. It's usually like how it starts for most people. You see an eye that is sideways, and that eye is very like precisely looking at you, not just like wandering, like very like piercing contact. And then,
I understand that totally. What you mean?
That's how it starts. Yeah. And then once you get a glimpse and understand that this is not a separate, that this is you, the whole understanding of who you thought you are breaks down, and you understand the how it is to be one with somebody else. See, like we always see each other separate from others.
We're so disconnected from other people and other living beings that once you make that connection with your power animal, you're connecting with another person, another living being in such a different way that you can't describe that.
It's undescribable because you see that you're much more than you thought you are.
Absolutely.
You are so much more than what you thought you are. And it breaks that bubble of your own, you know, thinking of yourself.
It breaks that ego part of you that you only see yourself through human eyes, through how you define yourself, how other people define you, right?
And you think superior to animals, right? You think, I'm human. Animal, like why? How is it good? Like how is this? You know, why is it so important? But so to see yourself as equal and to see yourself as no difference between me and, let's say, a dragon, or me and a butterfly, or me and a wolf or bear or whoever,
right?
Or the Pegasus, or so you start to see from different perspective. You no longer are in this illusion of self. You're like, oh, this is me. That's it.
You suddenly make that connection that you're all, if I can translate it the way I see it, when I connect with my animals, that we all connect together. I am no different than the beaver. I am no different than the wolf. I am no different than the horse. We are all connected. We are all brothers on this planet, and we all are one in that same consciousness to make that connection.
We are definitely all one. Together,
absolutely,
all the people as well. So we are all one. And that's why distant work, healing sessions, or rituals are possible because we are all connected.
So let me
Right.
ask you a question on that, taking that particular example a little bit further.
Yeah.
In the Tuvan belief system, shamanistic belief system, do you have legends or manifestations of what in First Nations one term is called skinwalker? In other words, a skinwalker being a person who is able to, speaking of an animal spirit, assume either spiritually or, some would say even physically, assume the characteristics of the animal to the point of appearing like that animal. That's very prominent around the Navajo and
Yes.
the Apache, the Navajo First Nations in the southwest of the United States.
Well, it's a very good question. So it's a shape shifting. Right?
Yes.
Shape-shifting.
Thank you, Beth.
Yes, it's a shape shifting, and if it wouldn't be for this pandemic, I was supposed to have 3 events at the Rubin Museum of Art during the summer that was 5 hours each, and so to speak, like day retreat almost, right? Or intensive shamanic workshop that was supposed to be called shape shifting the self with ChokBar. Shape shifting the self. And so shamanism generally, it's about mastery of consciousness.
Right.
So the ability to shift your consciousness to another point of consciousness at will, it's a core ability. So, and it comes with understanding that you could shift. And so what I want to say about that is this. When people look at me, and they keep telling me that, right? So because before I was not aware. So when and I've seen it in other shamans' faces as well. When people look at me, sometimes they see me as very young, like very young, like very, very young. Like I'm 50 right now. So they look at me and they're like, whoa, she's like a very young girl. And sometimes they look at me and they're like, whoa, she's like 80 or something, like she's really old. And some people see a male face instead of like my face, like male face instead of mine. And some people see my face through like sessions or work or workshops, face as like changing like animal faces.
Right.
When I do events, like my voice even shifts, like my voice becomes different. So to the point of my eyes actually change the color.
Wow.
My eyes, like I have brown eyes, but my eyes could change from brown to gray with green and blue.
100%.
And that happened.
Yeah.
So imagine how strongly the brain is affected by this consciousness. And when I look at someone, right? When one or the other spirit is with me, like my daughter is afraid to look in my eyes all the time. You know why? Because one time she finds something one, then another. Like she's afraid to see not me there. Because she saw how when I look, it's one thing, when somebody else is looking through my eyes is another thing.
Wow.
To a lot of people that sounds like I am like totally making it up.
No. Not to this group.
Not in this group. Not in our Ancestral Eyes and people who tune in and everything. Not in this group. All goes. It totally makes sense.
What I'm actually very happy to see is that you have that same phenomenon, that same physical, spiritual phenomenon, and that it exists within your practice, right? It's more of a validation and a sort of a happy confirmation of a phenomenon, which is a spiritual phenomenon, which transcends any single belief system. It is almost like gravity, or like the
Yeah,
sun shining,
It's
or like the
natural,
river
and
flowing. It's natural.
it's natural.
it expands to other cultures, other countries. It doesn't matter. We all have that intrinsically. That is who we are as human beings,
Yeah, the only
right?
thing I find, for instance, from what I've been able to surmise, is that in the Tuvan shamanistic belief, you put more emphasis, and in your own practice, you put more emphasis on these, on, first of all, your ancestral spiritual guide, on your, tribal or cultural ancestors, blood ancestors. You put a lot of emphasis on the elements or elementals, where we people go, the spirits that exist or live in the rock, the river, the trees, and all that. You
Which
put a lot of emphasis on the spirits of the animal spirits or totems that accompany us. So, and that from a divination, it's the transpossession, the full possession, the mirror, the 41, which I still like, why 41. 41 pebbles. That'll be like playing around in my head for the rest of the night.
yeah,
Maybe your spiritual teacher will tell us at some point in time,
Yeah.
maybe.
And
Larissa.
but it's interesting how you put emphasis, like your practice focuses on that. Also from an elemental standpoint, or elements, in terms of doing it, use fire. Fire is very important in your practice, right?
Very much, yes.
Yeah, which is shared by other, like, for instance, I believe in Japan, the Shugendu use fire as well.
Mhm.
Shigo
Mhm.
use fire as well, as a way of speaking, or having their prayers as well being sent to the spirit world and to the divinity.
Mhm.
Um, so it's very interesting, the focus. Whereby, for instance, in Ifa and Orisa, especially, like, if we look at different tangent on the Yoruba side, they put more emphasis on Orisha. They put more emphasis on the concept of the head or soul Ori. They put more emphasis on other powers or divinities that are considered to be Irumale and so forth. And they venerate the ancestor through a gungun and initiation. They have societies for them, but it doesn't play as prominent a role. And the other major evidence is on Ifa. In other words, Ifa, or the act
On the
of divination
divination.
through the divining chain of Ifa, Opele, Ekwele, and Ikins, for the Adele Ifa. In the case of Olorishas, through Edidi Logun, through the cowrie shells. Like, that's where they put, and medicine. So an understanding of botany. So let me ask you a question. Following on that comparison, we've talked about what about the knowledge of plants, like using plants or
Herbs.
trees in terms of medicine? How does that factor into the Tuvan shamanic practice?
Yes.
So uh, any shaman is still like there is this thing that people think like medicine woman or man is the same as shaman, right? It's a
Hmm.
common misconception. So that
Interesting.
it's
Interesting.
because medicine man, it's usually not a shaman. Usually not a shaman. While every
Oh,
shaman is a medicine man.
interesting.
Oh,
So because shaman encompasses in its I guess abilities everything
mhm.
that all other specialists have. Like
Okay.
let's say there are mediums, right?
Hmm.
Right.
So, but they're not shamans, but they're mediums. They're real mediums, right? So, but shaman, it has to be a medium as well. So there is psychics, and they're not shamans, but they're psychics, right? So shaman is a psychic as well. So there is a just bone setters, right? So that they don't do
Okay.
anything
Yes.
else. But every shaman is a bone setter as well. So there is so
So
shamans in
shamans do a lot more. They encompass a lot more under that being called a shaman. They do all of that.
they do all of the what other specialists usually do separate. And
Got it.
and it's done not because that person is that amazing, but because of those spirits. It's not about the person. The person is has no see, like the true shaman has no longer any opinion.
So the spirit comes directly to speak to
like
you.
whenever I need to speak, or I usually tell people that my teacher does not allow me to prepare anything. So like, you know, like I have a workshop, for instance, right?
Right.
So, and of course, like I have the outline, you know, what this workshop is supposed to be, but my teacher does not let me prepare. And he tells me, like, before even the very first workshop that I had at the Rubin, and I was like, you know, thinking, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't know how, like, I'm, you know, like, when are we going to start to prepare?
Yeah.
And he says, you are either it or you are not. And no amount of preparation could teach you how to be a shaman in 1 night. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're going to be as a shaman. You're just going to go and you're going to, whatever happens. So, and so the longer the shaman is a shaman, you have less opinion. That's why you have a problem to speak, because you take little bit activation, like right activation for something to start coming out. Because if somebody says something, you literally have nothing. Like, and whenever I see some people speak, every time I would go like, "Whoa, these people know so much," and I always feel like I know absolutely nothing. But it's true. The shaman, little by little, has less and less.
Larissa, wait 1 second, if I may. What is that sound? There's like a fan or something. There's something like an
I also hear the sound, but I don't know where it's coming from.
Okay. Yeah. Because I couldn't hear. Hold on. I couldn't hear something. Okay. Go ahead.
Do you have a fan nearby,
it's me.
Larissa? It's your fan. Do you have a fan?
You know what? That's what it is. Okay.
your fan.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so can you hear now?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry.
So it's like a person who literally has no understanding, as I give this usual example, what is right or wrong anymore, what is right or left. It's a person who loses all of this.
Understand.
Okay.
In order to be this absolutely nothing.
Right. So in other words, your workshop, you as a human are worried, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this or anything. And your spiritual teacher is saying, if you're the shaman, you'll do it. And you will give what you need to give as far as the teaching is concerned, right?
Yes.
So it's really trusting your spiritual teacher.
And shamanism and being a shaman is specifically about total faith. And that's why some shamans do acts of like incredible, I don't do them, but there are shamans who do, you know, they take like some metal, heat it up, and they like do like stick everywhere. I don't know, it's just like ridiculous things.
Wow.
And like do some like some acts that are looking impossible to do.
Right.
To show the full 100%. Like you need, if you're a shaman, you have to be 100% knowing through practice, like through the relationship that you have over years, that if you stand on the knives, they will hold you.
Understand.
You're gonna be untouchable.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna be. Nobody can do anything. You can't be hurt.
Right. Right. I love it.
But imagine how much of like it takes for a person who used to be a human being, normal human being, to gradually become that being. And yeah, it's and for every shaman is it, you know, they are at different stages of that. And then
Right.
the advanced form of shamanism is what I've never seen, but what the legends, like you said about legends. So the legends
Yes.
go that a shaman, such and such, when he lived there, like in that territory, that village in Tuva, that he could like just put his hand like that and the tobacco would appear. You know what I mean? So like what the things that what Jesus did, like appearance of objects out of the seemingly thin air.
Absolutely.
That is the form as well of materialization. That the legends go that shamans back then could do.
There's some people believe that Jesus, when he disappeared for that 30 years of his life, and he walked a path of a shaman, and people looked at what the things he could do were something that shamans could do, right? Turning water into wine.
Truly believe that Jesus was a shaman, 100%.
I do too. I think he walked the path of a shaman, was able to do the things that the other leaders, the other spiritual leaders in his faith, the rabbis, could never do, because he walked a different path, and he walked that of a shaman. And that's what I believe. Totally.
Yes. There is a story that goes that when the shamans were repressed, so to speak, and there was these churches, and so the people would come to the father, right, and say, and so what did God or what say? And the father would be like, I don't know, because they were used to direct communication through a shaman. So that they would go to a shaman, ask a question, and then they would be receiving the answer from divinity about things, right? And when the religion came about, so they would come and ask, the father, like, what did God answer?
Right.
Yeah.
And he could interpret that. That's what he was, right? So he could actually give you those words. I want to address Peggy Miner. Hello, my friend. She wants to know, what is the best way to develop your relationship with your team, your spiritual allies, your team of your ancestors?
Time together. The most important question: how to develop? Because not everybody is a shaman, and thank God, I don't wish it for anyone. I truly don't wish it for people. Truly, honestly, not wishing that for people.
Yeah.
But how to develop is, I believe, the best way is through meditation. Meditation,
absolutely,
the fastest, the path to knowledge. That little by little, depending on the way your consciousness is, you will, how my teacher says, if you just start meditation and do nothing else at all, that will eventually, over the years, or depending on you, bring you everything absolutely you need. So through classic meditation, by sitting and breathing, without not guided, just sit it and closing your eyes and breathing. And that is, if you do it at least 20 minutes in the evening, 20 minutes at the night, or 40 minutes at once, usually I advise in the mornings. So that is the very first step. And then employ the shamanic altar, where you regularly put something acknowledging that they exist, that your team, your spirit guides, and your power animals and your ancestors do exist, that they are not a whimsical imagination. And
absolutely,
that shows when you put something on your altar like that, and then you walk around it, your subconscious mind registered that you are doing this, like you're putting it for something. And that helps you to connect. And then the next step is to start learning how to do shamanic practices, which is rattling, like any rattle, and you start uh, rattling, and you start, if you have a drumming, and you start learning how to move your body without censoring. So by you getting up and giving your intention, you saying, I am allowing my body, I'm asking either my power animals to move my body, or you saying, I'm asking my spirit guide to move my body. But at first, before you're very advanced and you are balanced, I believe that it's not a good idea to try to connect to all kinds of things. I believe first sticking only with your power animals, and that's it, because that is not dangerous. When if you are not balanced, then you try to connect with all kinds of spirit guides, and there is all kinds of them, so that they could be not beneficial to you.
Some nice, some not so nice.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I advise to stick with power animal part of you at all times for quite some time, till you become strong, very balanced, and you know how to deal with these things. And so you allow your body to move in all kinds of ways without judging or censoring, which, since power part of us is located in subconscious mind, and our physical body is part of the subconscious mind. So the physical body, the ethereal body, and astral body are subconscious mind. And mental body, it's our ego, whereas social conditioning is where we ourselves as whoever we are, that name tag is this big. It's a consciousness. Consciousness is this big, and subconsciousness consists of 3 bodies of consciousness. So subconscious is way stronger, bigger, and more influential than conscious mind. That's why shamans since the dawn could do things they do, because they connect directly to what is stronger and bigger.
The subconscious.
Yes.
By going through meditation and drawing on that subconscious and bringing it to the conscious level. And that is what you bring forward, and that's what helps you.
You learn how to become, for your consciousness to become purified and elevated. So you also, but to answer also about how to connect, don't consume all of the information that is, especially during this pandemic and this crisis on Earth that we are having. Don't consume all of that. So
absolutely, and I know someone.
Yeah, very.
I know someone specifically. We were just talking about that before the show. Not to, to sort of, if you're empathic in any sense, don't absorb the energy that's out there right now. Really draw upon yourself and go within yourself and try to keep that away. I just want to mention what Peggy says, dreams. Now, tell me a little bit about dreams. And as Peggy put, that's why dreams are so strong. How does dreams come into play with Tuvan shamanism?
Dreams are very, very, very important. And as my teacher says, dream reality is the main reality, and the physical reality is a secondary reality. So, so dream reality is the main reality. So at first, when someone is not yet very conscious, you could draw a lot from your dreams. But the more conscious you become, then you receive that information, that knowledge that you need to go through whatever you're going through directly in the daylight. So you don't have to receive it through dreams. But if you still, your consciousness is not yet purified, and you are still blocking yourself during the day reality somehow, by resisting or not believing, or by being too much involved with whatever else is going on, then dreams are amazing source of power, information, and healing, and all kinds of things.
Okay, all right. Now, I don't know. I could listen to you all night. I really, truly can.
Just close it
What's
up.
that?
It's already
Yeah.
2 hours. Yeah, we should close.
Yeah, and I was just going to say we should sort of draw a conclusion here, and I just wanted to ask Jean-Jerome, do you have any more questions? I know we've not answered everybody's question that had posed a question from our audience, but we tried to sort of give a bigger, broader perspective of what's going on here. Is there a place where people can connect with you? Do we have
Yeah, I've been putting it throughout the transmission. I've been putting Larissa's website, her Instagram
where they can
information, and
connect
also
directly with Larisa and ask you questions and find out workshops? Now, you mentioned workshops
I
briefly.
believe that the best way to connect also is by becoming a members of the meetup group, because right now everything is online, and I believe it's going to be for a while online.
And that's the Shamanic Club group through the meetup.com that Jean-Jerome just put through.
Every event for the last 2 years that I've done, I put there as well.
Okay,
and so an event on June 13th. You have another one on June 20th, which I've been scrolling through. And then you have one on July 11th.
Oh, yeah.
July 11th, Dancing with the Wind, Shamanic Energy Lab, part 2 of 3. And then you have Flying on the Wings of the Fair Wind, Shamanic Energy, part 3.
Yes, it's going to be
in August, right?
All of these are online.
Right.
For this pandemic situation.
Right. No, for sure. So, Larisa, we're going to conclude now
with your quote. With her quote. She gave us a quote.
With your quote. Now, do you have a quote that encapsulates you or your belief system? Because that's our tradition that we've done so far since we started this show. So do you have one?
Yes. Do you want me to say it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
So the quote is my non-physical spiritual teacher's quote. So he says, a shaman is the one with 1,000 faces. Comma.
I love it.
The shaman is the one who dances with the spirits. The shaman is the one who knows nothing.
Wow.
That summarizes.
Very good.
Wow.
Very, very good.
Wow. That's profound. I'm going to have to, when this show is over, I'm going to go right to the end and I'm going to write this all down.
Yeah. We have a Babalao his name is Ofunshi Obako. So I had the privilege of meeting his Babalao. He also met my mom when she was alive. I'm very fond of this gentleman. He's from Cuba. And he is a Babalao, but he has also become or really vested himself in shamanism, but from the moon people, which is he could much better explain the origin of those people, but it's basically there are not many of them, but he's basically really vested himself in their shamanic practices, and he's tried to integrate a little bit and re-envision Ifa from a shamanic lens. So I know that's what he says. My respect and gratitude for Shamaness ChokBar. What you're explaining is correct.
Awesome.
And he says, I like Shamaness ChokBar's modesty. That is the base of a good shaman. Asheo.
Thank you.
Aww.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, that's so touching. Oh, and Beth is saying respect. Thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you.
And then you have also your friend Lume Star. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. It was a very intriguing discussion. So glad I was here.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So somebody stayed for the whole thing. Somebody did not fall asleep or go away.
No.
No.
I can tell you honestly that I think with our audience, we can touch on so many subjects that we could be here for several hours. But I think we're going to adjourn. Yeah. We thank you very much for your participation, and we encourage everyone. I've been throughout the broadcast, I've been scrolling Shamaness ChokBar's web information, her Instagram information, So I
Her
encourage
lab work, her
everybody
workshop.
her workshop. I encourage anybody interested in this very fascinating, very authentic indigenous belief system
Absolutely
and
authentic.
spiritual discipline to contact her. It's been a great privilege to have you with us and to learn.
Absolutely.
And we thank you for your insight and your teaching.
So much for having me.
I am so thrilled. Oh, Larisa, you have no idea. You brought tears to my eyes. I have so enjoyed your visit here. I truly have. So we're going to conclude this evening and say good night to everybody. I want to say thank you for everybody who tuned in. And thank you. And we want to announce next week's guest. Do we have a next week's guest?
Yes, we have
Okay.
our friend John
Oorzhak.
Oorzhak, which will be talking about the Romani belief system.
Yes.
It will be
Another
very
wonderful
interesting.
show.
Another wonderful show. And we'll be very happy to have him with us next week. That's again every Friday at 8 p.m. So the next one's Friday, June 12th, with John Oorzhak, speaking about the Romani belief system.
Absolutely.
I would like to thank you for having this show, because this is an unbelievable idea, and even your name, Ancestral Eyes, it is it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Again, we hope that, as I say, all right, we know the ancestors are watching us, and we want to honor them, want to honor the ascended masters and all belief systems and all indigenous belief systems around the world, and so that people know that their belief system is loved, respected, and that you're not alone. I think especially in this day and age, in the sort of a shadow sometimes of large religious belief systems like Christianity, Islam, and other faiths. The indigenous belief system, the shamanistic belief systems, have often been, basically discriminated against and sometimes threatened.
Yes.
And also even by things social-politically like communism. I mean, the story you shared about having to hide your shamanistic abilities and practices. What happened in Cuba for a few decades until the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the fact that the Cuban government under Castro regime realized that they could actually make money from tourism based on the belief system, and that there was an incredible interest and draw for it. But for 20 years, their religious items were confiscated, they were jailed, thrown out of their workplaces. It was forbidden to talk about religious belief and everything else in Cuba for 20 years or more.
It was destroyed all
the key thing, and we'll end on this point perhaps, is again what we also want to show is that these indigenous belief systems, whether it be Ifa Orisa, whether it be Vodun Fa, whether it be Enkisi, whether it be Hoodoo, whether it be Tuvan Shamanism, whether it be Sangoma, whether it be tribal traditions from Mozambique, Zanzibar, from any part of the world. We deal with truth, spirit, and the spirit world is here to help us on our journey and our evolution. That's why we say in our show, life is the journey our ancestors began. It's not just a catchphrase, but it's the ultimate truth of our existence on this world, right? This, for us, in the Yoruba faith, is the marketplace, our temporary abode. Much like Shamaness ChokBar said, that the dream state is the real state, and the live awakening state is really the not real state, right? The secondary state. And it's important that one of the things that any ideology, and I want to acknowledge, the Black Lives Matter and any group which is seeking recognition and respect of human life. Shamanism and all these belief systems, they're one of their core tenets, and core tenets of our ancestors is the preservation of life, the respect of life, Black, Asian, white, any life. but especially in these systems where people like, Black people, African Canadian, African American, and Black people around the world are often, repressed, and their rights are trampled on. In
Mhm.
places where other situations where, because of communism, fascism, or any of the isms, that suppressed, because anything that challenges them, anything that speaks truth, for a lot of people is an inconvenience they cannot tolerate. And so
Mhm.
that people understand that these belief systems offer mankind enlightenment and freedom.
Absolutely.
Freedom. And that
Absolutely.
freedom is what we're trying to defend, and that freedom is what we're trying to send a message to all the ancestors that are hearing us tonight, wherever they may
Absolutely.
be, all the ancestors that are awakening, that we are here for you, and that will always be welcome in this show, and that we invite you to step forward, to speak your truths, to practice your belief system, to
Absolutely.
honor traditions for now and for future generations. I thank you all
Absolutely.
for your viewing and your participation, Shamaness, and my co-host Teresa.
Woohoo!
And my co-host, Jean-Jerome.
All right. Woohoo. Have a
Woohoo.
wonderful evening, everybody.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night. Thank you.
So uh,
Right?
we're going to sign off now,
I'm
but the three
signing
of
off.
us are still going to talk a little bit.
Yes, and we're gonna sign off now.
Okay. Bye.